Hey guys, welcome to the live stream. Oh my God, my light is so bright. Hopefully everything's working all right. I was a little bit behind today. I had to do a couple things for work and then I was like, oh crap, it's 12:59 and I'm the one that set the live time. Yeah, my light's a little bright and a little high because I used it to record on the, what do you call it, on the whiteboard this week. So I am glad to see you guys here for the live stream and I have all kinds of and I have all I can hear myself, so I'm doing something wrong here. Oh, I know what it is. I have my live playing in the background here. Okay. All right. So I saw a bunch of questions come in beforehand, which was awesome. I even got emailed a really great one as well. So I am going to try to get to all of those questions today so that you guys can have them and can get your answers that you wanted. My chat box is not coming up. So if something doesn't get answered in the chat thing, it's just not coming up on here. I have to look on my computer. I'm glad you guys like the thumbnail. That was my son took those pictures. He used to do a lot of my video editing. Then we hired him at the company and then all of a sudden he doesn't do that. And yes, loud and clear. Hey, look at one of these days, I think I'm going to actually have a full handle on it. And nice to see you, Gayla and Jenny and Dexter. Broken tree limbs. Oh, no fun. I do not miss winter at all when I was up north, not one bit. So my sympathies to everybody that has to deal with it. It's so pretty when it first happens, and then after that, it's just hell. So I'm going to get the first question ready here. And you know what I did? I just popped it into my old writing prompt thing so that I have the the same sound system and everything as before. Oh, you know what it will do? It'll end up playing the music. I gotta figure out how to turn that off. I am not very good at this multiple monitor thing. I have this at work too, and it just makes me crazy because I can never figure out what I'm trying to get to and how I'm trying to click on it. And it's not letting me click the way that I want it to. I'm telling you, I'm close. I'm close to being able to master this, guys. I think it froze actually. I think my side froze on my screen. It says we're having trouble. So yeah, that's not surprising. But I had some great questions. I had you guys ask a whole bunch of excellent things that I really enjoyed. And I know that one of the questions that Jenny asked, as I'm trying to bring up the other ones, was, do you have any advice for self-publishing? And I think I need some more specifics in terms of what you're asking about advice for self-publishing, because it's a little bit harder for me to figure out what you actually want to know. Like, how do you do it? How do you put the software together? How do you get all of that stuff done there? I think I'm going to pull my monitors. Yes and no. I have worked with a number of big names as a ghostwriter, and I have done that entirely for nonfiction. I have never done it for anything that was not nonfiction. So I've never worked with a fiction author doing ghostwriting. Now, I will say that James Patterson uses ghostwriters. There was a whole controversy when that first came out and people found out that he wasn't paying them a whole lot of money. And so now he pays them much more of a fair wage than he did before. I personally do not know a single author who uses a ghostwriter. I only know about him because he told us that when he spoke one time at a conference I was at. So 4 words before ghostwriter. Okay, my sound went out. I don't even know why. Oh, I know, because I pulled something out. Because I was trying to unhook my monitor. You guys, you know that this is just my thing. And this was my Yeti microphone that I unplugged instead of my monitor because my monitor got frozen. So I have this whole docking station here, and I have most of the things labeled, but not everything. So yeah, that will teach me to label everything. And I seriously need like an IT person to just sit here in my office with me. I really envy those YouTubers that have that. So anyways, Sharam asked, "What's the core how many big names use ghostwriters?" And the ones that I have worked with are the ones that I have worked with as a nonfiction author. I don't know any ghostwriters that do fiction. So, except for James Patterson is the only one that I know of that actually uses ghostwriters. And now he gives them credit; they're no longer really ghosts. So, and let's go to the questions that I got already. Okay, we are not going to be able to use the questions because I can't make it work. I cannot make the audio work. Oh my God. I'm not going to use the screen of the questions, which I thought would be more interesting, but I have them on my side. So, all right, let's go to a different question because that question just seemed to have cursed me entirely. I had a really great one from Dragon Moon that was asking, she said, they said, my struggle, which you've covered before, is feeling like I've created a relatable main character that people are invested in, not some cookie cutter hunk that is your basic formula, body, height, endowment, and hot in the romance genre. How do you meet genre expectations while keeping originality in your story? And I do think that I can figure out how to add this image, by the way, to the my face in front. It'll be in front of my face, but hey, it'll be better than nothing. Let's see if I did it. Well, maybe I did. So how do you do that without making it really, really bad? How do you do that without that? And oh, I did figure it out. Look at that. I feel like such a rock star sometimes. I figured it out, but I also didn't figure out how to make it so that you could still see my face. But you know, hey, one skill set at a time. There we go. We'll do that's good enough. So when you want to make a romance hero that is not cookie cutter, you want to give him some actual issues that are believable, first of all. And I think that the thing that a lot of us do, and we tend to do, is that we tend to make romance heroes that are just really, really too perfect, right? They're just, hey, this is the perfect guy. This is what every guy would want to fall in love with. And, or every woman would want to fall in love with, whichever you're writing, male, female, male. And you don't want them to be too perfect because that is too unbelievable for the reader. So you want them to be people that have their own issues and things going on with them. And that means diving into the actual issues that people have, right? Like people have anxiety, people have depression, people have fears of intimacy, people have OCD, people have a whole lot of stuff going on. And the most appealing heroes and heroines in a romance novel are ones that are flawed, not flawed so badly that they should probably end up in a prison, but people that have the humbleness and the weaknesses that attract us to them in general. If you think about the people that you date or the people that your friends are partners with, and the ones that really work out, the ones that are you're like that's going to last forever. Think about what that person is like, what kind of things they have been through, and how that has made them a different person. For instance, I had an alcoholic mother growing up, and so I became super type A, overachieving, driven kind of person. And if I was a male hero, for instance, because you asked about male heroes, that would be a really appealing characteristic because there would be this vulnerability to him. Maybe because he grew up with an alcoholic mother, maybe he takes care of people too much, or maybe he tries to not get involved and ends up getting sucked in anyways, or maybe he is a little bit more compassionate to people that have addictions and things like that. So you want to look at what their history is and how that feeds into what develops them as a character. I think we tend to want these heroes and heroines, especially in romance, to be way too perfect, and that's not interesting. Now, that's not to say that I haven't read some that were well-written books, but I wasn't as emotionally invested if it wasn't an imperfect hero or heroine, if that makes sense. So you want somebody that really has a lot going on with them in terms of what makes them a human being. And they can still be hot and still have issues, right? Like all of us do. And Inva 10, I don't know why it only has 9 watchers, probably because I only announced it Sunday. So I don't usually do these. And part of it was because I didn't have my video edited for Monday yet. I thought I was going to have to cancel my Friday live stream. I might not have to, by the way. Something got rescheduled but I don't have enough details on the schedule yet. Um, is there something? Wait, your sound is gone. Okay, Sharam is saying there's still sound gone. I don't know if it is or it isn't, guys. I can't tell because I'm on my main screen, which normally always has sound without any problem, and I see my mic working. So, um, I really need an IT guy. I do. I'm not good at that. I'm not saying, okay, good, good. I can't tell if you guys don't tell me that it fixed itself. What happened was I unplugged my mic by accident instead of my monitor because my monitor froze. So, okay, good. Guys, yeah. So I just announced it Sunday, and Monday is a work day for me. And so I was like rushing to get this together at the last minute. And even though I had the questions, I had all that more or less kind of prepared. So let me know, Jenny, if that answered your question. I'm not sure if Jenny could make it. She said she wasn't sure if she could or not, but I'm going to give you guys a new question. So this one was another one that was asked on my channel, and that always helps because that way I can see it. And sometimes I don't necessarily answer it on the channel, but I'll save it for one of these live streams so that I can answer it for everybody, especially if it's a question that a lot of people have. So the problem, this is from Dan 8981. The problem I keep having when I see expectations like this, which I can't remember which book it was, which video it was that he was talking about. I think it was the one where I had the 8 million copies headline, which makes perfect sense, by the way, is how to apply this to my story, how to start here, not use it as a tool to analyze an existing work. I can just think about an external GMC, but trying to work in that in an internal GMC that doesn't seem trite or bolted on always stumps me, especially as I'm not looking to write romance. There was a lot of great discussion. This is under the Plotting 101 video that I just released a couple weeks ago. There's a lot of great discussion underneath this question in the channel that you guys should check out, because that was a great answer to it. And the thing is, everybody's flawed, like I said. So when I talked about Edward, now Pretty Woman, yes, is a romance, but you could make the Edward character in a totally different book and not have to have it be a romance. Edward could be a shark who destroys companies and is trying to go after every other company, but then he meets somebody that is in serious need of some help, and that would maybe change his trajectory. I mean, the subplot of Pretty Woman is not a romance. The subplot is all about the other guy's company and how Edward starts to like him and feel bad for him. And I think if it was my book, I would probably be writing that he kind of sees him as a surrogate father figure. So those kinds of things really help you create characters that have more depth to them. That all comes from knowing where they come from and how that shaped them. I've done a lot of videos where I've put 2 questions in that you should always, always ask. Why? And what was the impact? And if you just do that, now I don't want you to just do that with this, but if you just do it with their childhood, you learn a whole lot about the character. You really should do it for all aspects of a character's life, where they got their education, what job they have, who their friends are, who their relationships have been. But we all know that it's parents' job to screw kids up because, I have my part in screwing my own kids up. Just kidding. We don't want to do that, but it does happen. Your childhood has impact on you, period, no matter what. So if you look at your main character and you say just the questions about the first 18 years of their lives, why did their parents get married? Why did their parents get divorced? Why did dad love mom? Why did mom love dad? Why did they give him up for adoption? Why did they only have 1 kid and not 5 kids? Ask all of those whys and then say, what was the impact? So let's say that dad only married mom for her money. You just this is one teeny tiny aspect of a character. Dad only married mom for her money. What does that do to a child? What does that do to a male child? What does that do to a female child? What message does that send that child? And how do they turn out as a grown-up? That why and what was the impact will totally transform your story. And that is exactly how you create your internal GMC. I should probably do a whole other video on that, maybe even with the whiteboard, about the why and what was the impact. Then if you say, okay, so my character comes from a family where he's an only child. Why didn't they have any more kids? Maybe they didn't like kids, or maybe the mother lost a baby and was completely inconsolable and stayed in her room for the rest of her life. What kind of impact does that have on a kid? Like, those are big things that have big impacts on people. And so that's the kind of thing that you really want to work into your story. So now how does that tie into the external GMC? Well, if you have a character, and I have videos on this too, if you have a character who absolutely doesn't want to get close to people because they hurt him, or who doesn't rely on people because maybe his parents were unreliable and they just sort of abandoned him, the worst possible thing that can happen to them is that they get put into that situation again and going after their own goal. So you want to take that character and put them in the last type of situation they want to be in. For Edward in Pretty Woman, when you look at just the subplot, we're not talking about the romance, just the subplot. The last thing he wants to do is care about a business owner, because the first business owner he technically cared about was his father. And look how that worked out for him. His father was horrible to him. And that's why he destroyed his father's company, because his father was horrible to him. So Edward has built up this shell inside himself that has allowed him to be a shark, but underneath he's just a little marshmallow. So when he meets the owner of that one company, I forget what it was, when he meets the owner of that one company, the last thing he wants to do is care about him, but he does. He begins to kind of see him as somebody that sees beneath the shell of Edward and kind of pokes and prods at all those parts that he's trying to keep to himself. And that makes him go against his own, what he thinks is his best interests. It makes him go against his very own goal. That's how that ties together. Edward was brought up by a dad who was cold and unfeeling and was all about the money and only valued his child based on his success. And when he goes to do exactly that, which is this constant need to fulfill what his father thought of him, even though he's destroyed his father and has no relationship with him, when he goes to do that and meets somebody that actually cares about him as a human being, that puts him in conflict in his book, in the entire story. So that's how you do it. It doesn't have to be a romance. You just need to analyze whatever you read and watch. Look at John Wick, his wife being killed, and the puppy. God, who kills a dog in a movie? But the puppy being killed, that sets John Wick on a whole series of 4 movies where he is constantly trying to get away from these people that did these horrible things to him and to get revenge on what happened. So that is nothing about a romance. There really isn't much of a romance at all in John Wick. It's all about him trying to avenge what happened and trying to get away from these people and get out of this world so that he can stop experiencing and creating pain for other people. So there's a lot more going underneath there. And Dexter, I love it. Very loyal, upwardly mobile, and bound for fame watches. I do love that. And really, I mean, I'm having it in the middle of the day. So for people on the East Coast, this may not work. And like on the West Coast, it's probably your lunchtime. I have a number of watchers that are in England and Scotland and stuff too. So I like to do it on those times. And just because there's just a few people here right now doesn't mean that it won't get watched later. And hey, spread the word, tell your friends, if you know a writer, tell your friends, because I don't think that there is another channel where you can sit and ask a New York Times bestseller questions about your writing. And I'm not just throwing my credentials out there because, but seriously, I've published 87 books in 24 countries. There is nobody else that I know of that has the background that I have and is just sitting here telling you everything I know about publishing and how to write a great book. So, and Chris Kilzombie, nice to see you. First time on the stream. And thank you. I'm glad you've heard good things. So somebody else spread the words. It's awesome. Let me get through the questions that people sent in ahead of time before I take too many that were not from that. Let's see what this one is. Okay. So this one was a great one that was sent to me by an email, and I really appreciate it. Pina said a lot of really nice things in there, and I'm pulling it up on my screen because I can't read the other thing from here. It was because sometimes you won't necessarily be able to post it in the group or wherever you're going. This is from Adam. This is not from Pina. This is the one from Adam. So Adam is in my community, which the link to my community is in the description of every single video. The community is free, And in that community, I post things like, hey, this live stream's coming up, or I post questions, or I answer your questions. There's also a lot of links to all of the free materials in the community as well. So feel free to join that. I don't spam you. You get one weekly digest about what happened in the community that week. And it's not super active right now, mainly because my work has been insane, absolutely insane. Like I have 60 things on my to-do list to do after this. So it's just been a little crazy on my end, and I haven't had as much time to be in there as I would like. But Adam said that the question, when I posted in the community and said I was doing the live Q&A, it gave him an idea for a spooky YA tape title, which is great. He says he's stuck on the first sentence and overall opening to get things into motion because the main character's in a dormant state. There's a somewhat busy environment, but nothing crazy is happening yet. So I'm stuck between describing the setting, the weather, the surroundings, the people, and her current condition without trying to rush into the big wow moment. When the mood is glum, how can I instill conflict? Well, the big problem that you're going to have there, and you're probably already seeing it, is that you don't have a whole lot going on because the character's not doing anything, the character's not engaging. So I would try to find a way to try to make the character be more engaged. Maybe she's slowly coming out of this dormant state, or you have it in the point of view of another character, because there's no other real way to make it active and engaging if the main character is just laying there and all these things are happening around her. And then you can also ask yourself, do I really need to do it that way? Because what you're doing is basically, it's like having somebody in a coma, and that's not super exciting to watch. So how can you do this so that the main character is engaging and doing stuff? You could start with the character being involved in that, what's going on in that environment, and not tell the reader until the end of that chapter what the truth is about the character. And I know Adam's books because he's talked about it sometimes before in other events, other live streams and stuff that I've had. So I think that you could totally get away with that, and that would be really, really fun, because then you could have just the surprise come at the end. Oh, wait, that's not who I thought it was. This is this. I think that would be really fun. And again, my stupid thing is just not working. I don't understand why that is. Okay. And Hafamo, so glad you're here. Yes, I did. I was thinking of you and Silver Raleigh and the other people that are in other countries that don't necessarily get to make it to the live streams because it's such a weird time for you guys compared to where I am here. And I will get to the other questions that are in the comments as soon as I get through the other ones that are here that were in advance. Okay, let's pick up another one. Let me know if that answers your question. I'm not sure if Adam is here or not, but if you're not, then you're going to have to ask me in the community because I don't know what else to tell you. So this is the one that was emailed to me by Pina, which was really cool and was very nice. You spent years perfecting your writing craft, and I'm curious, when did you first experience that aha moment, the point when you truly felt you'd written a draft that was solid and complete? I don't know that I had an aha moment where I really thought my draft had what it took, because I had so many rejections. Couple hundred, more than 250 rejections, so many. And I did not have a lot of support at home. I did not have like a real cheering section at all saying you can do this. I actually had a lot of people sort of working against me, saying, why are you bothering to try? Because obviously nobody wants your books. Even my own agent said she wasn't sure that I could do this, that I had what it took to become an author, because I'd been rejected so many times. I'm no longer with that agent, but at the time, she was probably a little bit right, as much as it pains me to say that, because I was working too fast and too hard to try to get a book sold. That's all I wanted. I wanted it so bad. And I just kept writing and writing and writing. And every book was slightly better than the one before, but I wasn't pausing enough to figure out what I was doing wrong. But the aha moment for what I was doing wrong came when I was at a conference, a writer's conference, and I was sitting in a workshop talking about conflict. And I had been getting conflict wrong the whole time. I just kept thinking it was things outside the character's control. Because the standard advice was throw another bear in the boat, right? To me, a bear is a physical thing. So, okay, so she's tied up in traffic and now she's super late and her coffee spilled. These are all physical conflicts. They're not internal conflicts. And when I made that connection in that workshop, that every single page has to have an internal conflict and that everything that happens has to affect the character emotionally, that was like, oh, that's how it works. Like I had never gotten it before then. I'm not sure what my problem was there, but I had never gotten it. And it just took me a while just to figure that out and see how it went into play. Now, I had a book around that same time. I think, let's see, the book I had a revision letter come in June. So this was the first time I'd had actual interest from an editor. And I had just quit writing the week before this letter came from the editor. That whole quitting story is on my channel, on my homepage. It's my like trailer video. But I had quit writing the week before I got the revision letter. And then the writers' conference was like middle to late July. And that's when I had that aha moment. And I ended up changing that book the way that the editor wanted me to, which was great timing to have that conference then, and turning a deep, dark, angsty book about a hero who thought he murdered his own baby into a romantic comedy. To say that was difficult is putting it mildly, because she had seen that I could write funny. And she said, that's what you need to be doing. And it really did not come naturally to me because nobody in my life thought I was funny. You see me, I'm like a comedy of errors and clumsiness, not like jokes every 5 minutes. But anyways, I did it and I put that conflict layer in and she loved the book and they bought it. And it went on to win the award for Bookseller's Best Romance of the Year that following year. So it got a ton of sales. It was reprinted multiple times. It went to many countries. I think I went to 7 countries with my first book. It did really, really well. Then I had to write the second book. And I had a meeting with that editor around the time I sold the first book. And she's like, so what else do you have for ideas? Now I had these 10 books in 8 years that sucked, except for the one that I rewrote. And I gave her all those ideas. And she's like, no, none of those work for me. I had another idea that I had written on a cocktail napkin on the plane ride to the conference because I was like, maybe I should have a backup idea. And I had a single sentence. That's all I had that I'd written on the plane ride. And I said, well, how about this? Survivor in an RV between a hero and heroine. She's like, I love that idea. When can you have that book to me? And I'm like, I have a whole sentence right now. So I wrote that second book. And it was very, very hard. You'd think I would have figured it out, but I hadn't. The problem with the second book, the biggest problem was that the entire book takes place in one location. So the characters were not moving from A to B to C to D. So I didn't have a lot of action per se. So I finally figured out, and there is actually a line in the book where the character has a light bulb moment. And that is the exact light bulb moment I had where I realized, oh, so this conflict has to not just be physical, but emotional and impact everything that's happening in this, RV space. And then everything has to interlock with the plot. That was kind of the last connection I needed to make. The first book that sold was very easy because the plot was very logical and linear. It made a lot of sense. The one in the RV, it was just basically a survivor. Whoever lasted the longest was going to win it. So there wasn't any linear, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that kind of thing. And I didn't want to make these characters super shady. So I didn't have that. And I had to build in a plot and create an actual plot with goal, motivation, and conflict for both my characters that extended beyond the RV, which meant I had to figure out what their ordinary lives were like. That's the video that I'm working on that will come out next on my channel. And how that figured into the plot at large. That's the key to really putting it all together. And so if you wanted me to have an aha moment, it was kind of like a series of them. There's honestly, never been a book that I thought the whole thing was like, yeah, this is awesome, everybody's going to love it. Never had a book like that. I've had scenes where I was like, yeah, this is awesome, this is great, I feel like I nailed it, but for the whole book? No, I do not feel that kind of confidence about a single book I put out there. I'm just waiting for somebody to say, this is the worst piece of crap I've ever read. Now, are there people that say that? Of course. There are people that give bad reviews and there are people that give good reviews. I just don't read reviews, period. I do not want to know what other people think because it will just completely destroy me if they like it or they don't like it. There's pressure in both directions. If they love it and they're like, oh my God, I hope Shirley creates more characters like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know if I can. Like, this was just a once in a lifetime kind of character I created. I don't know if I can. So that puts pressure on me. Or if somebody says, I hated that grandma and the grandma was my favorite character in the book, well, that destroys me. So I just don't read them at all. I don't have any need to know what people think of my books because it is very destructive. And when you're a stranger on the internet behind a keyboard, it's real easy to tear somebody apart. And I don't know about you guys, but that like those little things will stick with you your whole life. Like I had somebody write to me about my first book and had a typo and it had a eye color change from like page 12 to page 176. Somebody changed their eye colors. And I have been through several revisions of that book. I had a copy editor, I had a developmental editor, I had a proofreader. Nobody caught either of those things. And it bugs me to this day. And that book came out like 30, almost 26 years ago. And it still bugs me to this day that that is there. And I can't do anything about it because it's in print. So I fixed it when I went and republished it myself, but it'll be in print forever and ever and ever. And every time I see that book, I'm like, oh, damn it, I should have caught that. So no, I don't do things that will reduce the inspiration that I have in my life, that will reduce how I feel about my books, because there's enough angst and insecurity in this industry that I don't think we need to add more, personally. So let me see if I have another question that I missed in there. I'm not sure if I do. Okay. Nimva10 asked, how do you do unreliable narrators as well? And I've read lots of those. Geneva Rose did a pretty good job with The Perfect Divorce. She did an excellent job with The Perfect Marriage. And I've read a couple of books that have had unreliable narrators that were human. And that's really the key, right? Even the worst villain has some humane qualities to them that makes you care about them. And so you will overlook a lot of things, or you will keep reading the book because you care about them. Tony Soprano and Jax from Sons of Anarchy are perfect examples of people like that. Tony Soprano did horrific things. If you were reading The Sopranos from his perspective, you would probably think like, this guy is a psychopath. He's running people over. He's burning up the restaurants of his best friends. He's killing his nephew's girlfriend. You know, he's doing awful, awful things. But what The Sopranos did brilliantly was show the inner conflict that Tony has with who he has to be and what it's doing to his family. That's the whole reason, like, he ends up kind of in therapy. Like, he realizes that the two people that he has to be are not compatible in his one person self. He can't be a good father and a good husband and a good leader if he is doing bad things. So that continual battle within him made him really somebody that I wanted to watch, and I stayed glued to it the whole time. So it's giving them that humane background. Even Hannibal Lecter, you can make him, that kind of person, really more engaging. And I did not read the Hannibal Lecter books. I only saw the movies, but you can make them more engaging if you give them more depth. It's not about feeling like cheating. It's more about kind of creating a fully rounded character, because then too, the reader doesn't know, is this an unreliable narrator? Is this somebody that I should not trust? In The Perfect Marriage, like, the whole way that Geneva Rose did the characters, I really didn't know which one was lying to me until the end of the book. So that's really good too. Ashley Elston, First Lie Wins, that character makes it clear from the very beginning that she's lying, but you are engaged with her and you care about her and you suspect that there's a good reason for what she's doing. So you begin to really like her and then root for her. Could I talk about overloading your story with threads? I keep adding external motivations, head spinning. So you don't want to have too many of external motivations. Really, they have to be the things that matter to all of us universally. So if you have, let's say, she's got to save the family farm because grandma's dying of cancer and grandma wants to die in the family farmhouse because she's lived there her whole life. And there's a caretaker couple that lives on the back of the property that will have nowhere to live if the family farm goes under. And there's this breed of owl that will be destroyed if the family farm goes under. And, I mean, if you have too many of those, the reader doesn't have enough motivations to latch. It has too many motivations to latch onto. So you want to come back to what are the most important things that your reader is going to care about. And when you look at, say, Hoot by Carl Hyacin, the owls made me think of that. That's really about the kids wanting to save this land because of those owls. And there's the developer going on. There's the big evil developer and all of that kind of thing. But they get invested in that because they care about the place where they live. So it's also, you have the kids' regular lives going on and all of the other things that are going on with their lives. But the main drive is to save this little piece of their community because it means so much to them. So if you can pick the one or two things that would really matter on a universal level, and people care about family, they care about loved ones, they care about meaning and significance in our lives, those kinds of things, then you've probably got enough to move forward. You will have other motivations that go into each scene. In the book that I talked about, I don't have it on my desk, but the book that I talked about in the next video that's coming up is Close Your Eyes and Count to 10 by Lisa Unger. And her original motivations for going in and doing this sort of Mr. Beast game is because her kids need her to she needs to pay for some things for her kids that are really important. And she needs, most of all, freedom and control over her life. And the money that she could win from this game is what will give her freedom and control over her life, and thereby also take care of her kids. And then underlying that is a little internal motivation that she kind of feels alive again. After going through all of this other trauma, she sort of feels alive again. So those are the main motivations in there. But within each individual scene, there's little teeny tiny baby motivations. Like when she gets to the island, she needs to get the lay of the land and figure out where the best hiding spots are. So her motivation in that scene is to find a good hiding spot. But all those motivations feed into the big motivation, because finding a good hiding spot is what will help her win, which will help her get the money, which gives her freedom and control. So it all intermeshes together, and that's the most important thing you need to be able to do. So if you're adding too many in the beginning, then you're going to have too much for the reader to latch onto. But you can add little baby motivations throughout, as long as they feed into the main overarching motivation. Nympha said, how do you balance internal psychological conflict with GMC? And that's really all about what I talked about in the last video where I did the whiteboard. It's the person basically going against what this is the most, I'm not saying you have to always do this. Let me backtrack a little bit. The most interesting books that I read and the most interesting movies that I see are where people are going against their own external goal, motivation, and conflict based on what they want internally. So I just watched 56 Days on Netflix. It's called an erotic thriller. I wouldn't say, it's not like it's porn or anything. It's sexy. But her goal in the beginning is to get revenge. And she connects with him. And I don't think you really know this at the beginning of the movie, so hopefully I'm not giving you guys a lot of spoilers. But she connects with him and begins to care about him, because all she really wants is to have somebody see her and connect with her and make her feel safe and protected and not like a ghost in her own life, because that's basically how she was in her childhood. Nobody believed her, nobody trusted her, and after this tragedy happened in her family, she was basically a non-existent person to her parents. And when she begins to develop feelings, that goes directly against her goal. And we know this. We can see it happening and thinking, oh my gosh, how is she going to make this work out? Is she going to lose him because she's doing this? Or is she going to turn on him? And that's what keeps the reader guessing. When the character's internal issues go directly against their external goal, motivation, conflict, like Edward's in Pretty Woman, that keeps the reader engaged. So hopefully that answered your question. Corrective Fluid Head, nice to see you. Welcome to the live stream. An internal realization can be as powerful of an obstacle as a physical one. Can even be something as simple as revisiting a trauma or remembering something under a new context. Yes, I love the revisiting trauma stuff in a book. And I love, somebody asked me this in the live stream on Friday, how do I show growth? I like to have a circular story where a character either comes back to or has a reminder of something that was really difficult or really traumatic early on in the book, or even in their backstory. And they come back to that at the end of the book and they handle it in a different way, because that shows them their growth. It shows the reader their growth, and it gives the reader the little, yay, you did it kind of moment. So being able to have those internal realizations and then have a chance to overcome it can be a really powerful moment for the reader to be able to see, okay, they've got it. They've deserved their happy ending and all of that. Let me make sure I went through all the questions that I had while you guys are asking other ones. And of course, my little picture thing. It's weird. Every once in a while, my computer just is like, you know what? I just don't feel like working for you today. I think I got everybody's questions. Yes, I did. I got all the questions that I already had on the preliminary thing. So if you had a question that I didn't answer, this is the best time to ask it. Are Amazon ads worth paying for? I've had mixed results. I think you have to really take a course in that. I am not an advertising expert by any stretch of the imagination. I do work in marketing, but marketing's different than advertising. The part of marketing that I do is different than advertising. So I think it helps to educate yourself a lot. But for me, at least, the thing that has been the most successful is building a community of readers. I mean, yes, there was 9 people here at the beginning, right? And now there's, I don't know how many, because I'm not looking at the numbers, but 14, 15 that are actively participating. Those 14, 15 people are really engaged with me. And if I said, I'm releasing a new book tomorrow, I bet a good portion of them would buy, you guys would hopefully buy it because you see that there is a value in what I do. And so I've always been of the mind that it's smart to build a loyal following. So I've built a following of people that feel like they know me, that they are immersed in the world that I create with my books, and that I'm kind of a part of that world, I guess. I write small town contemporary whatever. I write small town contemporary horror young adult. I wrote that before. I wrote small town contemporary romance, small town contemporary women's fiction, and now I'm writing small town contemporary suspense. They're always in a small town because I grew up in a small town. I love small towns. I still love going home unless it's winter, because I lived in Massachusetts as a kid. I don't like going back in the winter, but the rest of the time I love it. I love going down the same streets and seeing the same people and running into the same people in the supermarket and seeing that, the Baptist church got a new steeple or the drugstore got a new front door. I love that. And so I tried to create that kind of a feel in my newsletters and my Facebook page for my author side and all of that. And here I've tried to build more of a community of, we can do this together, because that's what I needed. And so authenticity and building that community helps a lot and creates rabid fans, I think. I have people that will buy anything I write, no matter what. And they are like, to me, they're like a miracle people, because I don't understand anybody loving my books that much. But I have met a couple of readers that literally owned every book I've ever written. And that's pretty amazing when they walk into a bookstore loaded down with, dozens of books. It's pretty cool. So the long and the short of it is, they're worth it if you're also doing the other parts, the social media, the building a newsletter, the creating a community feel where readers feel like they can get close to you, because readers really do like to feel like they know the author. I mean, I still get geeked out when, my kids are like, hey, do you know this person? And I'm like, yeah, I know that person. Like Harlan Coben, I've met him many times, and he recognizes me when we go places, because we had a couple of great conversations many years ago. And so when I'm like, yeah, I know Harlan Coben, like I feel like a really cool kid. Or when like Stephen King or Joe Hill reply to me on Threads, I get so super excited. Like I'm like a little kid. And when I get autographed copies at a conference, I get super excited about them, because I feel like I'm part of their community, even though they're people that they're not my like best friends. We're not hanging out getting coffee every week, but it's still pretty cool. So that's what readers really want to feel. They want to feel part of that world. So you've got to back it up with all of the others. And my advice in that too is to make sure you choose a social media platform that seems most aligned with your particular audience. You know, if you're writing YA, TikTok's a great one. If you're writing, for older generation, like, 25 to 50, then maybe it's Facebook. And build that community there first. Don't try to be everywhere all at one time. You can put some things out on the other platforms, but it is way too exhausting and way too much energy to try to be everywhere all the time, all at once. It's a lot. So you don't want to have to do that and try really hard to build TikTok and YouTube and Facebook at the same time. When I started this channel, I concentrated mostly on YouTube when I first started, because that's where I figured I would have the biggest impact, because most of the people that I knew that followed me for writing advice were in that YouTube demographic. And then TikTok kind of happened by accident. I'm more popular on TikTok than the others because I had a story that blew up over there. But my third one is Threads, because readers like words. And I love Threads because it's not so much video driven. It's more calming for me to watch Threads, to look at Threads at the end of the day instead of videos. So my third most popular audience is Threads. I'll take it. I think a lot of people would like if I did more on Substack and everything else, but there is one me, and it's a lot of stuff. Do I think it's hard to transition to screenwriting if given the opportunity to adapt your own books? That's a great question, Rami Shanoy, and welcome to the chat. Also, welcome, Ron. I forgot to welcome you. I've done some screenplay writing, and I tend to be too wordy, but dialogue is one of my strong suits. So I tend to just write the dialogue and let other people fill in the rest. For a while there, I was working on some screenplays with a friend of mine who is a film producer. And then he had a film take off and now he's busy and I haven't had the time to come back to it. But yeah, I absolutely think you can learn it. The software that I got was called Final Draft, and it was actually really easy because it just fills in the capital letters where you need them and, the interior, exterior, all of that little stuff. But you can study a lot of screenplays out there. There's a ton of screenplays that are available for free to download so that you can study how they're constructed and how much they put into it. You just don't have to be as wordy, as descriptive. There's not as much narrative and introspection. There's a lot more that happens per se in the dialogue and the actions. So correct to fluid, you can delegate your online presence and guide the followers from social media into your mail or preferably your own website so that you're not shadow banned. Yes. And there should always be a call to action to get people to go somewhere. I say this as somebody that works in marketing and never remembers to say to you guys, hey, don't forget to buy my book. Like, I almost never say that because I forget all the time. I try to remember to say, hey, there's downloads in the description. I don't like to sell in general, but everything that I talk about is in the Writing Compelling Fiction book and the Writing Compelling Fiction workbook. So there's a lot there. Shameless plug for my book. But yes, you can absolutely do that. And Substack is the one where you still own your audience because it's basically the blog post for the blog spot. Was that blog? I forget what it was called, Blogspot. I used to have one way back in the day. In that one, I had Eating My Words on Blogspot, where I would share my recipes and a little bit of my behind the scenes life. And that was part of that whole thing that the readers really liked. And I could actually go back to that because I like to cook and I like to talk about food. But anyways, in my spare time. And Nimva 10, how can one even write 87 books? Honest to God, I have no effing idea. Oh, I know what the question was that I think I didn't dive into. I think I forgot to take a picture of it. Somebody asked me on the channel, if you've published 8 million books, why are you not a millionaire? And let me explain to you guys how publishing works. Number one, my first book came out a long time ago. I think 2001, 2002. I mean, it all blends together after a while. And I had also had a couple of nonfiction books before that in 1997 and 2000, 2001. And in publishing back then, especially, ebooks were not even a thing. So we didn't get any ebook money. Publishers were extremely slow to adapt to ebooks. So even when they became a thing, we weren't making much money. And an author gets an advance, yes, but advances are, pardon my French, they're shitty. So maybe YouTube will get mad at me for using a curse word, but they're not good for the most part. You do get lucky as you hit more accolades. Like once I hit the New York Times list, my advances went up. But then if you have a crappy book, they're like, oh yeah, we're not going to give you that much money again. Or not a crappy book, but like crappy sales, because a lot of that is outside of your control. And then royalties are 8% of net on the print book. So if your book is selling for $6 and the net's $3, then it's 8% of that. So that's not a whole lot of money, right? Like that's 24 cents or something like that. They're also taking out your advance first. So the advance is like pay ahead of pay. So they take out the advance before they start paying you royalties. So if I made a $10,000 advance, I would have to sell a lot of copies to take 24 cents that adds up to $10,000. And then this is what makes publishing such a weird world and so hard to make a good living at in traditional publishing. They do a reserve against returns. So just in case some wild bunch of people return 60% of the books that got ordered, they hold back like 60 to 80% of your first royalty check, and then 40% of the next one, and then 20% of the one after that. So it takes a while, like a year and a half usually, to really start seeing money on a book, even the one that hit the New York Times list, which to hit the New York Times list, you got to have sales that are really big, a couple 100,000 at least. That one, it took me about 9 months to see that money come in. And my career has also gone through some dramatic downs that came during my divorce and made a lot of things come to a grinding halt. So the money that I was making before that was very good. And then I had to make some difficult choices about my career for many years. And part of the reason I started the channel was to begin to build my presence back up again, to say, hey, I didn't die. I'm still here. I'm still writing books. And it's also over the course of a gazillion years, right? It's 2026. So I've been writing forever. And if you divide 8 million by 2026 and you do 24 cents per 8 million, they're not all like that. You get more on ebooks, but you know, it's going to take a while to be living on a yacht. I don't write for the money. There are people that get really lucky. There is that flash in the pan, or that, you know, fairy dust, as my friend Suzanne Simmons used to say, that gets sprinkled on somebody. And I've had a couple of fairy dust moments where I made a lot of money or did very, very well, and a few years that were extraordinarily well. But it's all about, how did your last book do? And if your book happens to be selling really well in the South, when Hurricane Irma comes through and floods a lot of the stores in the South, and so thus your sales tank, you get blamed for it, not the hurricane. So they'll look at that and say, well, the last book, you know, Target went and did a reorder, but then they didn't sell them because they were flooded. I'm the one that gets blamed for that. And it hurts my career, not anybody else's bottom line, even though I have nothing to do with it. It's just, they look at the numbers and they don't remember that there was a hurricane that came through. Or if your book comes out on 9/11, which happened to me, I had a book come out on 9/11, and a lot of none of the press went out, none of the marketing went out, and the first few copies that hit the stores after 9/11 were missing pages because my printer was in New York City. And the printing people were understandably just a tad distracted by the huge tragedy going on around them. And so I got a whole bunch of marks against me, I guess, on my career because of that. And sometimes you can recover from that. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes a publisher is willing to invest more money in you. Sometimes they're not. And I think it's just a difficult industry no matter where you're at. To climb up and be continually making the good money means continually being on top of your career. And I have never put all my eggs into the publishing basket because it's too unpredictable. So I'm always running a business at the same time. And right now my business has been crazy, crazy busy. So my career is kind of second, third, fifth down the line behind the channel, behind a lot of other things. So that's a really long answer to a question. Let's see. And thank you, Corrective Fluid. Yes, it was Blogspot. How much do you need to sell, Nympha 10 said, to make a reasonable living from writing? I don't know. It really depends on what you decide a reasonable living is. The majority of writers do not make a reasonable living from writing. Frankly, if you read the statistics, it's pretty damn depressing. But I have always made a living from primarily writing. My career for most of my life, so I would say for 45 years, all I did was writing of one kind or another, and that was my full-time income. Now I co-own a social media and video production company. So we're doing that. But up until that company started about a year and a half ago, I was doing 100% writing of one kind or another and making a living just doing that, and always working from home and always being able to work with my kids. And I made a decent living. I was doing ghostwriting, marketing writing, all kinds of different things. When you ghostwrite, you write pretty much everything. I would write copy for brochures and press releases and whatever people paid me to do, basically. And that allowed my income to be relatively steady, because when I have clients and they have a regular workload demand, then I have a steady amount of work to do. So that allowed me to make a living from my writing and allowed me to write books as well. But the book industry is very mercurial, and you never know what's going to happen with it. So having a second writing income or a second income of some kind is what I recommend. So yeah. And thank you, Dexter. Yeah, I'll say that. Yes, I'll try to put that in there, or I could beep it if I could figure out how to do that on the editing software. We all know that's probably not my forte, so I won't. But anyways, at least I got most of the way through this without too many technical errors. I might be able to edit out the part where it wasn't doing any sound for a minute. Sometimes I can go into YouTube after the fact and find it and pull it out. Sometimes I can't because it takes forever to upload. But anyways, I appreciate you guys watching today. And I do have a video that I'm working on that is another whiteboard video that goes into more about how the ordinary world of a book ties in with the main GMC plot and the catalyst. I just didn't get a chance to finish editing it this weekend, hence the live stream. I'm going to try to do these every couple of weeks, because I think it's really helpful for you guys to be able to ask me questions and get an actual response right then and there, rather than putting into the community and hoping that I see it or respond to it, because I don't always get to comments right away. So I appreciate you guys being here with me today. I appreciate you always, as always, putting up with the technical issues that plague my life. And yes, I know I need an IT person standing next to me all the time. One of the things I might try doing is filming some stuff at the studio where we have our video production company, because then I'd have actual professionals doing all my stuff. So I might. We've been pretty busy, so I don't want to put the team on my little channel kind of thing. But I appreciate you guys being here and spending time with me and listening to me blather on about all my answers that sometimes are way too wordy, and asking such great questions. You guys really have really good questions, and as always, continue to ask them. And if it's something that I see enough need for, then I will definitely do a video on it, because I'm always here to help you guys learn what you need to learn, not necessarily what I want to talk about, but what you need to know, so that we can all learn together and share the channel, so that then there's more than 9 people. Actually, there's a lot more than that right now, but thank you guys for joining me, and I appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great writing week.